Hi, I'm Andy Aledort, and in today's lesson I'm going to be teaching you about the playing of the great Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath, and in particular the song Iron Man from Black Sabbath's second album, Paranoid. Tony Iommi is one of the progenitors, one of the originators and creators of the kind of music called heavy metal that gave birth later on to black metal and death metal, with songs like Symptom of the Universe and Paranoid, and this song Iron Man and Supernaut and War Pigs, all these great classic Black Sabbath songs. They created a sound that really laid the groundwork for the future of very hard rock and very heavy metal. Before Tony Iommi formed Black Sabbath, for a little brief period there, he was actually the guitar player in Jethro Tull. And what was happening in British rock at the time, due to the influence of a band like Cream, and then a little while later Led Zeppelin, British guitar players were influenced by the blues, but they were playing very turned up Les Paul, Gibson guitars through Marshall amplifiers and getting a lot of distortion, using oftentimes blues themes, which is what Cream did, borrowing themes from Willie Dixon or Muddy Waters, Robert Johnson, and creating this new sound, which was the sound of British blues rock, and then ultimately heavy rock, hard rock, and heavy metal. So Tony was very influenced by the playing of Eric Clapton, among other British guitar players. So the style really comes from blues guitar and blues soloing. When you hear him soloing on a song like Iron Man, it's very reminiscent of the groundwork laid down by Clapton with Cream. Tony Iommi, in the beginning, in the first couple of records, he tuned normally. Very shortly thereafter, Iron Man is on the second album, and that came out in 1970. And in 1970, Tony started to tune down a half step. If you watch videos of the band playing Iron Man or tunes from that era, you more often than not, live versions will be tuned down a half step. And then later on, he started to tune down even further. Now, one of the most distinctive things about Tony Iommi is that he overcame a terrible handicap from the very beginning. When he was a teenager, he was working in a machine shop and accidentally cut off the tips of his middle and ring fingers, which you would think for many people would end their aspirations of becoming a guitar player. But Tony actually created these synthetic fingertips that he wore and learned to play, and of course had to use those synthetic fingertips through his career, and then they went through some changes, of course, making them more durable and usable and more effective, along with having to deal with having these synthetic fingertips. Tony decided to use extremely light gauge strings, which made it easier to bend and vibrato and to play. So when he's tuned normally or tuned down a half step, his high E string is an 8, but then the B string is also an 8, which is very, very, very light. And then the G string is an 11. The D string is an 18 wound, which on acoustic guitars, oftentimes that would be the G string. So he moved it over to the D. And likewise, the A string is a 24 wound, which more often than not is used as a D string. And then the low E string is a 32 wound, which more often is used for an A string. So one more time, you have 8, 8, 11, 18, 24, 32. And then later on, when he started to tune down a step and a half, oftentimes called C-sharp tuning, because the low E is tuned down a step and a half to C-sharp, the gauges went up slightly, but still very, very light gauge strings. 9 on top, then a 10 for the B, a 12 for the G, which is super light, 20 for the D, 32 for the A, and 42 for the E, the bottom two being a little more normal. So one of the most interesting things about Iron Man is actually the way the song begins. You can hear Bill Ward's bass drum just hitting quarter notes, and then Tony comes in and there's two guitars, it's double tracked, and he's bending behind the nut, picks a string and bends a note behind the nut. That's played like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So as you can see, I'm pushing down on the low E string behind the nut, and the string is pushed down before I pick the note. So what you hear is an E, but up to F sharp, slowly released. And it starts moving up slightly, so you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So when it's first struck, it's a full step higher, sounding F sharp. Now that guitar part, Tony double tracked. When you listen to the original recording, you can hear there are two guitars doing that. And they're a little out of sync with each other, which creates kind of a friction between them, which is, I'm sure, what he was looking for. The last time he does the lick, which is bar 7 in the transcription, there's an extra 2 beats. So he bends the string, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, and then you hear, and that's where the main lick comes in. So there's an extra 2 beats following the last bend behind the nut into the main riff. So at that point, Tony then brings in the main lick in the tune. It's bars 8 through 11 of the transcription. That's still the intro. And what that is, it's all power chords, root fifth power chords played on the bottom 2 strings. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that main riff in the tune, it's all root fifth power chord. Starts on B, so index finger 7, ring finger 9 on the bottom 2 strings. That's B5. Slide up to the 10th fret with the index finger, 12th with the ring. That's D5. Everything's downstrokes. And then when we get to here, actually, we get to E to get up to the 12th fret and the 14th fret. D5, 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 D5. Then we're going to go back and forth between a G5, 15, 17, F sharp 5, 14, 16. And that's strummed down, up, down, up, down, down, back to D, 10th fret. Back from D to E again, D5, D5. And it repeats. All right, this brings us to the verse section, and what Tony does is he switches from playing this riff in power chords to just playing it in single notes with the root notes only. That sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so we play that low B 7th fret of the low E string. And then we're going to go to D, 5th fret of the A string. And that's going to slide up 7th fret for the E note. D, D, E, E. Then I move back down to 4th position, middle finger, 5th fret of the D string, pulls off to 4th fret with the index finger. So 3 times. And land middle finger, 5th fret of the A string. And then at the end of that, just do a slide up and back down. So the whole riff. After that, Tony goes back to the chordal version of the riff. And he's going to play it once, and then he's going to go back again to the single note version and play it twice for the next 2 lines in the song. And then that is followed by the next riff in the tune, and that's played like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so this riff is basically, it goes between the B and the A. It's just single notes. So I start sliding up ring finger 7th fret of the low E string. And when I play that D note, 5th fret of the A string, I just do a slight quarter step bend. And then I go down chromatically. Put a vibrato on it. That quick open low E string. Then 4th fret to 5th fret. And back up chromatically from 5th. So on the way down, in the first part of the riff, it descends chromatically, 7, 6, 5 fret, and then the second half it goes back up. And right after that, then that chordal version of the riff is repeated twice. That's followed by the second verse and the single note version of the riff, which we went over already. Plays it twice. Then comes the next section, which could be called the chorus, and he goes back to playing power chords, and he just lets them ring. 1, 2, 3, 4. So at the end there, it went back to that main power chord riff. Played twice, and then it's going to go straight to the third verse, which is back to the single note version. Played twice, and then the chorus again. So that's just 2, 3, 4, that D5, 12th fret, 14th fret. Another full bar on D5, 10, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then he plays the other next cool riff, which is over B5. You're going to hit the B5 chord, 7th fret, 9th fret. So that chromatic sound that we had before when we were going, Tony brings chromaticism back in, which is notes that are 1 fret apart in this part as well. So 2 hits on the B5 chord, and then 7, 10, 7, index, pinky, index. Then you sustain the E5 and D5 chords again for full bars. 2, 3, 4, and then we're back to that riff twice again. And then the big heavy power chord riff comes back in and it's played twice. On the third verse, they don't go back to that initial primary power chord riff. So after you've done the... Do that again, that again. And then the song switches to a double time for the next riff, which means the beat goes by twice as fast. That part's played like this. 1, 2, 3, and... All right, this part, which you could call the first interlude, which is played at double time, the song sort of modulates to C sharp minor for the guitar solo. So this is bar 49 of the transcription, and you're just going straight down C sharp blues scale. So one more time, chromaticism. When you go 11, 10, 9 on the A string, so we're going to go 11th fret of the D, 9th fret of the D, 11, 10, 9 on the D, 7 on the D. Again. All right, so for the guitar solo, most of what Tony plays is based on what you could think of as either C sharp minor pentatonic or the C sharp blues scale. So that's C sharp minor pentatonic. Could also be played like that. And one of the things he does, one of the signature things, is to go back and forth from straight eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and in the phrasing, to playing 16th notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. So there's a real structure rhythmically to his solo with so as you're practicing it, make sure you get those things solid, the rhythmic part. So let's first do the first 8 bars of the solo. Let's play it like this. 1, 2, 3, and. So as you can see, there's a lot of hammer-ons and pull-offs starting. So that's the first bar. You're going to start hammer from 7 to 9 on the low E string. Then a pull-off 9, 7, 9 on beat 3. 1 and 2 and that's beat 3. And if you want, you can go. That fourth note is a hammer. If you want to do that. And then, so this is bar 2 of the solo, which would be bar 53 of the transcription. Now on bar 55. So that's one of those 2/16ths and an eighth. So we're pulling off 11, 9 on the D to 11 on the A. And then 2 9th fret on the G. Right here. So now bar 56. So you got beat 1 is vibrato on the 11th fret. There's a dead string hit. So here, right on beat 3, I'm fretting 9th fret of the B string and bending 11th fret of the G at the same time. And then there's a quick pull off, 12, 9 on the B string to 11 on the G. And I'm using my pinky here, but you could use, if you'd rather, your ring finger to your middle finger. Which a lot of guitar players like to do. And now in bar 58, so that was bars 58 and 9. You can see I'm mixing up eighth notes and 16th notes, starting with straight eighths. 9, 11 bent, actually a half step. Index barred across 9th fret on the top 2 string. And then 16th, pulling off from 9, from 12 to 9 on the B, 11 to 9 on the G. And again, I'm using my pinky, you could use your ring. That's more comfortable for you. So those quick. And he actually gets a little of the G string in there. If you do it right, you get a full step bend on the B string and a half step bend on the G string. And then in the next bar, which is bar 60 of the transcription,